We are stoked.
I'm a terrible sore loser. I don't follow the rules.
All the bearded guys seem to lie.
There are rumors galore.
I am so up and down in my emotions right now.
Retain salary.
Okay. Where there is smoke, there is always fire, etc., etc., etc.
You don't do it.
Been there, done that.
And we'll get into it later.
They know crap about hockey.
Come on. Well, I laugh it off.
I have no issue.
Here's the thing, though. I have nothing to do.
I'm okay with this deal.
There was no other option.
So now you have nothing.
You already blew it.
Win now, win now.
It paid off.
I will eat my pants.
Hey guys, it's Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I'm Pawel the Cat, and I've got my brilliant but knows nothing about hockey co-host, Evan.
Hey, it's Evan Reynolds coming back at you. Another episode of Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I guess this is episode 28, and I have to say, I don't feel so brilliant. Look behind me. I'm at the Pepsi Arena, so excited about the Colorado Avalanche, and there's no hockey tonight, man. What? So anyway, no, I'm not joking. Man, I'm stoked with another episode. Pawel, did you read our comments last week? They said these two guys, you and me, it's like we're so passionate about hockey that it never ends. And we have endless conversations. And again tonight, I think we have endless conversations.
Yes, we do. And first and foremost, I think we need to talk about Colorado security, because how did they let you on ice behind there right now, right? But no, we enjoy the banter we have between us, and we enjoy everyone tuning in, commenting. So remember to like, share, subscribe. You know, we're partnered up with ASAP Network. They've got all your sports news, NBA, NFL, WWE, whatever you want, all of it, they cover it. And then, of course, they got us for hockey news.
Woo!
We are your insiders. We know things. I don't know things, but Evan knows things, and he just comes on here to correct me. Evan, we got a jam-packed show, but before we begin, do you have your beverage?
We got it. We got it.
Talk anymore. Oh, are you drinking from the Golden Knights?
Oh, in the Colorado Avalanche Pepsi Center. Not good. Not good.
Oh, I thought you're drinking the tears of the fans because they know they won't make the playoffs this year.
Ooh, man, they're putting a push in.
It's going to be tough. So where do we begin? There's so many stories happening. Why don't we start with Pat Maroon and his comments that recently he made to the media and his media availability after the game versus Toronto, where they lost 6-2.
Okay, so let's ask the question. Why do you get a penalty for chirping a player? Okay, what's everyone think? Do you think that because you're chirping another player, there was no racial slurs, there was no anything like that, why would you give the guy a penalty? What are these refs doing? They're taking it into their own hands.
I don't understand why you can't, chirp or, badmouth one of the other players, back and forth. And it was him and Wayne Simmons that were kind of just chirping each other. And for whatever reason, that ref got very upset and sensitive. And if you hurt their feelings, I guess you're going out for 10 minutes, you're gone. I didn't realize it's in the rule book. Maybe they should send us a rule book so I can read through that rule.
Do you know what it makes me want to think? I'm starting to think, does the ref actually think that he was being chirped like himself? Like did he get it? I don't understand. I've never heard of another player going off for chirping another player about something that's really unrelated, nothing that's going to get a person with unsportsmanlike conduct. It doesn't even make sense.
100%. And I think, again, we go back to what we've discussed on previous episodes, where the questionable reffing decisions that are being made on the ice and not being accounted for at the end of the game, which they should be. I will die on that hill that refs should have interviews, or at least explain, even if we don't agree with the answer.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, there could be a goalie interference call. You may like it, you may not like it, but there's an explanation that there was a tentative blockage where the goalie couldn't move his pad. We get that. There's certain plays, certain penalties you can maybe argue it wasn't. A suspension. Why these refs are calling for chirping between two benches when, they're just preparing for the playoffs, and that's I mean, there's only like 10 to 15 games left for most teams in the NHL. They're getting ready, and it's only going to intensify in the playoffs. How is this going to help the game? Are they trying to get rid of something in the game? What are they trying to get rid of in the game, right? Is it going to be quiet on the ice?
So I will say I have been trying to invite as many refs as I can find out there. Right now, none of you are taking my calls. I don't know if you recognize that two guys wants to give you a spot and share your opinion right here. So if you know a referee, I don't care if he's minor league, if he's reffing at the rec league levels, if he's reffing in Europe, if he's over in the AHL, the KHL, I guess that is Europe. I don't know why I said that. And, well, the NHL. So even a retired ref, if you're retired, or if you're an official in another sport with reffing like football or something, man, we want to hear from you, and we want to get some ideas, because we don't get it at Two Guys, and our fans don't get it.
Yeah, but I also think if they're not responding to you, maybe because they don't want to talk to you. So if you want, you guys can also reach out to me. It doesn't have to be to Evan. You know, you can reach out to our hockey Twitter at hockey_2. But another little questionable call that was recently made was between the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, where Brendan Gallagher had some very candid comments about Tim Stützle and falling on the ice, or, you know, pretending to be as if you were on the diving team for the swimming Olympics. So what are your thoughts on what Brendan Gallagher was saying, and in terms of him not even being able to do that when he was practicing, or in his earlier days when he was training to become a hockey player, Evan?
Yeah, okay, so I know you got lots to comment on this, so I'm going to keep mine short on this one. I like Tim Stützle. I really do. I like Brendan Gallagher. I like they both bring something different to the game. What I think has happened with Tim Stützle, and by the way, let's make mention where mention should be mentioned. Tim Stützle has 16 points in his last 16 games. He has really been coming on as of late, so good on him. Like to see it. Like to see another German player right in the footsteps of Leon Draisaitl. Excellent. So good to see that happening in Germany. But I think that this has a lot to do with, you know, when Gretzky came into the league back in the day. Some of our boomers are going to recognize that, or if you're Gen Xers, when you watched Gretzky came in, he was a whiner. That's why he was called the Edmonton Whiners. That's where that all came from, you know, because he was whining to the refs about this. And then we had Sidney Crybaby, right? You know, the kid boy. He was complaining about it. And so what happens is you kind of get a nickname early. And I think that this is what's happened, because other players get annoyed with seeing this kind of stuff. And Tim Stützle, whatever the reason is, he's just doing it. Maybe he learned this growing up. It's been a part of his practice. I don't know. But you know what? In the end, I don't care. It's pure hockey entertainment.
You know what? I think I got to think of a nickname for you. If anyone has a good one that's very respectable but also funny, please write it in the comments that we can call Evan. Because it can't be a beer, because you got none of that going on right now. But I agree with you to some extent. I think one of the things that we have to understand is that both those players are very highly skilled, both Brendan Gallagher and both Tim Stützle. And when you're playing on a sheet of ice, like you see behind you, Evan, and as you've played yourself, it can be very, very easy to flip or flop with a hit, with a bad skate, a bad turn, whatever it may be. And when you're on the ice, it's very easy to potentially fall over for whatever reason. Now, given that Tim Stützle is a rookie, I think he's still feeling himself out. He's only in his second year. He's trying to get a sense of the ice. You know, I haven't heard this complaint about anyone else or from anyone else about Tim Stützle, unless, you know, other people are saying it. So in my mind, I think Tim Stützle, he played, he fell over maybe a little bit lightly, and people can say, well, it was a bit of a dive or whatnot. But Brendan Gallagher's no exception to that rule, where he hasn't fallen a few times where I've been like, you could have gotten back up. The problem is with smaller players, you're more easily to be pushed around and able to fall on the ice, given your stature. That's not to say you're not skilled. It's just to say it's a little bit harder, especially when you have bigger bodies coming at you, like a 6'2" dominant player, or defenseman, or offensive player, and hitting you, you're going to most likely fall. Or sometimes you have some bad balances. I don't know if people watched the San Jose Edmonton game, Puljujärvi, who's a very tall fella and a big fella, fell quite a few times and had a hard time keeping his balance. And you see that sometimes. And for whatever reason, maybe it's a bad skate. Maybe it's just something else. Like, who knows? And, you know, hockey players talk about ice conditions. Maybe the ice conditions weren't the best at that period. Maybe it was the end is a little bit more sloshy. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a weird call out, especially since how well Montreal's been playing under Mark Saint-Louis in the last little bit, and maybe they just weren't happy with the loss, the 6-3 loss to Ottawa Senators. So, you know, maybe it's just a little back and forth of which team is going to rebuild faster now, given where they're both at, right? So just my thoughts on the matter. But you guys can let us know what your thought is. Was Stützle diving, or was he not?
Diving, but it's okay, man, because it's pure hockey entertainment. Hey, let's switch gears for a moment from the NHL to take you guys to a place that we don't always talk a lot about, and that is the NCAA Division I men's hockey. We are now in the Final Four. They call it the Frozen Four. What a cool name. So there are 4 teams left. There is Michigan and Michigan State, University of Denver, and the University of Minnesota. So we got Minnesota, Michigan State, Michigan, and Denver. This is going to be a dandy. If you aren't, go onto your computers, look how to find it, be able to follow. If you're in the U.S., you're going to be able to have a lot more channels. If you're in Canada, you might have to stream some, or unless you got some of the channels on your local cable. But you will be able to find it if you guys look. Now watch this, though. Something very important. This ties into the NHL. Owen Power. He's with Michigan. Owen Power will, no matter what happens, whether they win or they come out of it early, Owen Power has been, Darren Dreger of TSN has reported now, he will be signing and joining Buffalo at the end of the Frozen Four. That's going to be exciting to see, because Buffalo's been really coming on of late, and to see what they're going to look like, he's going to have a chance to get a few games in before the end of the year.
100%. We talked about it last episode, so if you haven't watched it, make sure you check it out on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook site. Like Buffalo has strung together quite a few wins, and, you know, Alex Tuck has been really good. Kyle Opozo has been a real solid leader for that team. You know, they've really rallied around that. Peyton Krebs has come to its own. You know, of course, their back end is a little bit shaky. Tage Thompson, I believe he's at 38 or 39 goals this year, you know, and people talked about that trade years ago with Ryan O'Reilly when he went to St. Louis. And now, you know, it's kind of paying off because he is a little bit younger, but he's finally becoming that kind of elite number one center, if you want to call it that, in Buffalo is what they wanted. So you have him and Alex Tuck, that back 1-2 punch. And, you know, you can build around that. And you've got Dylan Cousins, who's come into his own and had a great World Juniors a few years back. And, you know, that team has a lot of young prospects. One of the questions I have, because I know they've talked about bringing Craig Anderson back, is like, it's good as a vet because of what he has done, but maybe looking at potentially getting a newer goalie, right? Dustin Tokarski has been pretty much there, but they've had some injuries. I believe they had Malcolm Subban there for a little bit because they traded for him. But a lot of injuries on the net side. So, you know, they may not compete for the playoffs next year, but watch them be contending in 2 to 3 years from now, because Buffalo can really, you know, push for a playoff spot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and speaking of things coming out, so it's called the U Sports University Cup. It's all the best top so there's 4 teams representing Canada. The University of Golden Bears, definitely the standard in men's hockey in Canada university sports. They've produced a lot. In fact, Derek Ryan is a pure example that has come out of there. Anyway, interesting. Right now, the top player, he's 23 years old, is Noah Philp. So he has been a Golden Bear star player. He was signed to a 1-year contract for next year with the Edmonton Oilers. He's been assigned to Bakersfield on an amateur tryout. So this is going to give him a chance to come in. And before some of you, just like Derek Ryan, he still carved a career when he went into Carolina for himself. Remember, even Jonathan Huberdeau took 6 years before he became a point-per-game player. So this is an excellent opportunity. I like this for him, Pawel. I'll tell you why. We're talking about the player, not actually for the team, because he's going to have a chance to have 1 year, and then he opens up his free agency status. And so if he has a good year, if he needs a developing year, it's not working out with the Oilers franchise. There's many franchises. It's going to get him recognized. As long as he can do good in the AHL, he's going to have a chance to turn pro, definitely.
100%. And I think anytime, which, I hate agreeing with you, is anytime you get a chance to try out for any team, that brings valuable experience that you can't buy. You can't just, it's earned, right? And a lot of these guys who come up, they have that opportunity, and it's been more than ever present this year and last year because of COVID and because of injuries and sickness. That a lot of guys have been able to come up and prove themselves and play for their respective clubs. So I think it's something that they'll remember forever. Playing even one NHL game is a big deal, and I think that even if he gets an opportunity to play in the AHL, I mean, it's a stepping stone right in the right direction to getting to the promised land, as one would say.
Yeah. Hey, we were talking about controversy. Let's move. You were talking about the Pat Maroon, and we're talking about the Gallagher. There was a fighting controversy between two teams specifically. So can you tell us about your thoughts on Beagle and his actions?
Oh, yeah. So there was a bit of a game between the Arizona Coyotes and the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Now, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks had been up, I believe, 5-0 at this point. And, they were kind of, outplaying Arizona. And we all know all the things happening in Arizona. And I guess, there was a potential loose puck that Trevor Zegras, who's been a phenomenon this year for Anaheim, went in for the puck. Now, whether he saw it, whether it was available, that's up for the refs. It's questionable. You got to cross-check. And as Troy Terry skated in to try to break up the fight, because Jay Beagle had cross-checked him, Jay Beagle went and started pounding the living, meat bag out of Troy Terry. And Teemu Selanne actually posted a photo of it and a little bit of a caption saying, this can't be happening to the Ducks anymore. We need a little bit of a Ty Domi in there. And so it came out that essentially, the Anaheim team was a little upset because Troy Terry was then unavailable for the Oilers game on Saturday. And the response was kind of not the best by Jay Beagle. Now, Jay Beagle is a veteran. He's a Stanley Cup winner. Yeah. He's on a final year of his contract after being traded from Vancouver, and for whatever reason, something triggered in him to attack him, and people talk about hockey code and stuff like that, but it seemed like Troy Terry didn't want to engage. He wasn't that typical kind of player. Trevor Zegras made these comments, he didn't think it was really cool and fair. The broadcaster there also made some comments saying, well, if you're going to dangle and smirk every time you do a fancy goal or, try to outplay your team, get ready to answer the bell. It's not becoming of Jay Beagle to do that. I understand roughing. I like fighting. I know a little bit of cross-checking, a little bit of back and forth banter. As we talked earlier with Pat Maroon and Wade Simmons, I'm happy to call you out. I'm a very terrible chirper, Evan. That's why, you usually beat me at this banter. But what it comes down to is that, if a guy's not going to want to fight, don't engage, right? Yeah. There's no point. Granted, the Ducks did trade away a lot of their players. Like, I believe it was Nick Delorier, who was their kind of tough guy, and he usually would stand up for these guys. And we know that the game is trying to move in that direction. You see that's what Toronto is focused on. It's about skill, not as much fighting.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to protect your young players because you want to grow the game. And I think the NHL was wrong. And I think the linesmen were a little at fault there for not jumping in quicker. And again, linesmen or refs, what are you guys doing? Like, this isn't helping the game. And these are two bottom teams now. We know, Anaheim have had a bit of success at the beginning, but, it's just fighting for pride and for a spot next year on the roster. So is that what Jay Beagle's doing? Because he doesn't even have a contract next year. Like, what did something make him upset? And I know Arizona's been dealing with some things where maybe other teams are laughing at them or other fan bases.
Yeah.
It was a bad look on everyone, and you have to set the tone of what's going to be allowed, especially since playoffs are coming up. Fans want to tentatively know what it's going to be. So call the rule book. That's all we ask for. It doesn't matter what it is. Just call the rule book. But
okay, so
get off my soapbox because I've already ranted
yeah.
enough.
Well, there's your rant for today. We got it in. No more rants for you. Only rants for me. So here's a thought, though. If you don't want to fight, if you don't want to get messed around with, don't go and try and break something up. So I blame Terry on this one, man. You don't go into that. And I get it. He wasn't asking for it. He wasn't asking to get hurt. What Beagle did, but they're in the spur of the moment. Their brain's not functioning properly in that crisis moment. They're just like berserk. And Beagle, he's sick and tired. Maybe he thinks I've had this. So I'm playing. Aaron Singleton, one of our other guests and does political podcast stuff, he'll attest to this. If you're listening right now, Aaron, you just make your comments in there, even if you're coming on late, buddy. But listen to this. We have experienced this. When you're playing net, a player lands and just crushes you, and you're looking up and you see out of the corner of your eye this player, and you're like, what the heck? And you're nailing him, jabbing him, getting him out of there. And you know what I found out? Half the time, my own defenseman literally cross-checked him right into me. And so I'm mad at their player. Their player's done nothing. He just was trying to come in to score. My player did it, but that's all I see, and it's called perspective. And so maybe Beagle, I'm going to take the benefit of the doubt on Beagle. He likes to be tough. That is kind of his job. He's kind of, I think he probably, I'm sure he must have recognized at some point and pulled back a little bit. He should have. But again, don't put yourself in that position if you don't want to be in that position.
I don't know.
Simple.
If it happened to another star player, how would you feel about it, though?
Well, what the hell?
The problem is in the game of hockey, you're when somebody comes in and there is a scrum happening, and Ziegler has admitted that when he was cross-checked, he expected it. It's part of the game. Yeah. But when another player comes in to kind of break up the fight, like a larger player, whether it's a Darnell Nurse or Zach Cassian, and kind of grabs them, or even Dustin Byfuglien a few years ago when Winnipeg played Nashville, he literally pulled two guys by their jersey and out. Should those two guys have fought him? No, they're not going to fight Dustin Byfuglien because Byfuglien is a big boy.
Well,
no
you
one's
don't
going to
have
mess
to.
with him.
Well, then
So
don't go
I will give you the credence that maybe Troy Terry shouldn't have gone in there. At
Yeah.
the same time, I think that there was a bit of a sucker punch from Jay Beagle, and I think it was a little
Absolutely.
bit uncalled for. So
Second punches happen all the time, man. And that's a part of the game. Should you get a penalty for it? Absolutely. Should you maybe get fined or suspended sometimes? Absolutely. But if you don't want to, don't go in the kitchen if you don't want to deal with what's cooking, man. Just don't go in the kitchen.
I have more credence to why Taylor Hall sucker punched Lyubushkin in the head after him being cross-checked into the boards, which looked a little dangerous, and I can understand why Taylor Hall would be upset. Yeah. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been not suspended, or that $5,000 is a fine, because you're all going to just tear me apart on Twitter. But what it all is, it's just I don't make these rules. I'm not the one who's in charge. George Peros is making these rules with a committee. It's not just George Peros by himself sitting in a room and be like, okay, you get this, you get this. It's a wheel of fortune of what suspension will you get today, right? Or Austin Matthews with his. So and that one was an equal battle. There was in the net, you're cross-checking. Rasmus Dahlin is cross-checking Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So you guys have heard it here. By the way, follow us, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, like us, follow us on the ASAP network. Be able to connect in with us, guys. Make sure you comment live. We just love the support that you guys give us. Thank you for joining all over the world. Man, we got people over in Pakistan. We got people in Belgium. We had people out of Russia last week following us. So thank you guys for following. But I do apologize to all of you following us for my co-host here he basically wants hockey to be fair. So he wants to create a non-fighting league that sounds like it's like an all-star game where things just can't happen. And, it's really, I think he's too used to playing ball hockey where everything is just nice. And by the way, I know I'm going to get slaughtered by all you ball hockey fans now.
I think you've got the wrong thing in mind when it comes to ball hockey in terms of it being nice. You want finesse, but you want toughness. But the difference between what toughness is versus or putting yourself blocking a shot or having a good hit, because there's been some good hits. I think one of the people we acknowledged a few years back or a few months back was Jacob Trouba out in New York, who's been great at hits this year. I mean, he injured Jujhar Khaira this year, which unintentionally it happens, right? Because it's such a fickle game. You're on, we talked about it earlier with Brendan Gallagher and Tim Stutzla. You're on a sheet of ice, and you're going at fast speeds, and the puck is going at fast speeds, and someone's going to hit you with a shoulder check or something. It's chaos. But I don't think I want just a tight, clean game, because there's no.
Sounds like All-Star hockey. Sounds like All-Star hockey, man.
Coming from the guy who can't even have a beautiful beard like you're supposed to in the playoffs, I think I'm okay.
So I just need to share with everyone. You just heard my co-host. He said that a beautiful beard that you're supposed to have for the playoffs. What he forgets is you're not supposed to have a beard until the playoffs. Then you grow your beard. It's like the old Movember. You start. So he thinks I'm supposed to have a beard now, and it's not even playoff time. He doesn't even know when the playoffs start.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that? It's the phone ringing off the hook with Brett Burns and Joe Thornton giving you a call, giving you a talking to.
I'm going to yank Brent Burns.
Yeah. You know what Pat Maroon said when he grabbed me? He's like, nice beard.
And it was a nice beard. All right. Let's change the topic. Let's move somewhere else. We can spend hours talking about fighting and stuff around.
I can spend hours fighting you verbally.
Okay. We want to talk about underrated season. And so we'll talk about some players. I'm going to let you start in just a moment. I want to talk about one overrated player right now this season. I want you guys to look at Dougie Hamilton. He signed, I said that he set the market, dudes. And so at 7 years, $9 million a year, he was already sitting at, maybe because of some of his good years, at a .46, a .56 points per game, $9 million. Are you going to pay a person, if they play a full season for 40-point season, $9 million? If you look at his metrics, he has a lot of offensive zone starts more than defensive zone, which is kind of interesting, I find. But he's not even going to make 35 points probably this year in like approximately 62 games. So I'm looking at this contract and I'm saying, man, New Jersey, is this another PK Subban situation?
It's very true. It's very true. I mean, New Jersey went out, and we talked about it a few episodes ago about what's going on in New Jersey, and they keep going in and making big splashes at the trade deadline or in the offseason, signing these big names, and yet nothing's happening. And now, all of a sudden, Jack Hughes is injured for the rest of the season. You've lost him, right? And, I mean, Jesper Spratt is a solid player, and he's really come out of the woodshed, but really, no one else is scoring for that team. They've had issues with their goaltending. Mackenzie Blackwood, if we all recall, we talked about him potentially being for Team Canada.
Yeah.
But, COVID situation and thing. And now he's had a very difficult season. They haven't had a true number one goaltender that has been able to stabilize the net. And, like Dougie Hamilton was supposed to be that, that backbone there on the blue line, and it hasn't really worked out, and he was a pretty penny this offseason, and you've got 7 more years of this. So I don't know what New Jersey's going to do and what they're going to have to do, because they're going to have some big decisions in the offseason. And it's so we can talk a little bit about coaching there too, because they've gone through quite a few coaches who have gone on to have success in other places, and yet for whatever reason, Lindy Ruff is there, and it's not that Lindy Ruff is a bad coach; it's just they've struggled, They have Ryan Graves. They have Ty Smith, who I think has regressed this year. But they have really no one that's really emerged as a superstar. Yeah. And, besides Jack Hughes, but now he's injured. And so you think to yourself, what is New Jersey doing? So I agree. I think Dougie Hamilton's going to need to have a better season next year if New Jersey wants to compete in a very, very difficult Atlantic division, because you've already got some big names in there. And with Buffalo and Detroit taking further steps this offseason, you want to be competitive, right? And who's really going to drop off in that division?
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, we talked about Dougie Hamilton. You already brought up his name. We wanted to talk about underrated players, and that very team has a player that you brought to my attention today.
Jesper Pratt.
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on Jesper Pratt?
Man, you brought it up. You tell us about him, man. What's your thoughts on this guy? How is he performing? Why is he underrated?
Well, because he was a late round draft pick. You know, he came out of nowhere. It took him a while to kind of find his leggings, but he's really found some success this year. And like I said, who else is scoring for New Jersey? It's hard to name someone. You know, most teams that are in the playoffs have a lot of scorers with point producers, and yet there's not a lot coming out of New Jersey. So, you know, Jesper Pratt has really, really emerged as there. I mean, Pavel Zacha has had some success there, but I know Vancouver's looked at him potentially, and he may be on the move next year. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Jesper Pratt, I mean, Vancouver's
really emerged as a stud. Pardon?
Yeah, you keep mentioning Vancouver a lot just because of some of that interest. You actually think something might happen in the offseason, I bet.
I think so. I think there could be a lot of interest, but I just see Pavel Zacha moving in the offseason, wherever it may be, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest for his services as a top 9 guy somewhere.
So, hey, let me throw out a player that I see as underrated, and that's Matt Zuccarello. People don't talk about him in Minnesota, man. The guy's got 71 points this year in 61 games. He performed well. He didn't perform this well when he was playing over with the Rangers. But, I mean, great pickup by Minnesota. Bill Guerin knows what – I don't get it. Bill Guerin – I know we're talking about Zuccarello right now for being this player, but, man, Bill Guerin seems to know how to – like, as much as he bought out the Parise and the Suter situations, I mean, it's just like, wow. He's been able to find a way to keep rebuilding and still fill out and still have a big cap space that he's got to be paying on every year.
For like 6 or 7 more years after starting next year. So they've talked about them taking on some dead cap space next year in the offseason just to offset those costs because they had to pay Caprice off, right? Which he's been dynamite too. I think he was their first player in Minnesota history recently to reach 80 points, if I recall. Or 85.
He's not underrated, though. He's not underrated.
No, he's not underrated. I'm just saying that's a record for Minnesota. He's made Minnesota hockey exciting and fun.
Yeah, Minnesota is not the same kind of boring hockey that I heard. I'm trying to remember which player it was. I heard on one of the shows they were talking about when they talked about them. They actually, it was Brian Lawton talking, and who actually was a Minnesota North Star back in the day, drafted first overall. But Brian Lawton said he called them the Minnesota Tame, right? Because they weren't very wild. They were quite boring hockey.
Maybe they should have changed their name to Minnesota Boring, right? Is that what you're telling all the Minnesota fans?
All right. Yeah. Now go ahead and share with all those people in Minnesota. Let's see if we can up our fandom and get some clickbait here talking about Minnesota. Give us another underrated player.
For Minnesota, Matt Dumba. Just kidding.
Who else you got in the NHL that you think is underrated?
Oh, so I would say one of the big ones is out of St. Louis. The name, let me just, because it escaped me, is Robert Thomas. Young guy. So he's a point per game guy right now. He's got 14 goals and 15 goals and 44 assists in 59 games. So that's 59 points. He's been very solid. We don't talk about the Blues enough, but they've been on a roll. I think one of the other ones is Ville Husso, their goaltender, who's really stolen the net from Jordan Binnington, who's having kind of a great career. And interestingly enough, is a UFA this offseason, so we'll see where his services go. But I could see St. Louis making a good push. You know, they've been in the middle of the pack between Colorado, Minnesota, and Nashville in that Central Division. Yeah. And, you know, they have ways to score, you know, and for all the talk of Vladimir Tarasenko going anywhere last year, you know, and even potentially being exposed to Seattle and not going there, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, he's producing, right? But I think that team has been very, very good. And, you know, Robert Thomas has made it much, much better. And he's really good friends with the Tkachuk brothers. And they've spent a lot of time together in the offseason training together. Just a fun.
I just like to just mention a quick little shot to the side here with St. Louis Blues. I actually believe, while they're not really a dark horse, they would be the dark horse of the West if a team that no one was expecting to win it this year came out of somewhere. I think it would be the St. Louis Blues. They still have the pedigree. They still got a lot of players that have been there, done that. And yeah, when you got players like I remember our draft party at my house, us going through the players, and I remember Robert Thomas very specifically. I remember someone getting it right of the place he would be drafted by Minnesota, and I was just like, what? It's just like Robert Thomas, like this guy's going nowhere, and
No.
behold, man, awesome pickup, great on Robert Thomas. I'm glad that he's really been able to to perform as well as he has.
I think one of the things that St. Louis doesn't get enough credit for is how solid that blue line has stabilized and been, given that they lost Pietrangelo about a year and a half ago, 2 years now. And people talked about how there would be a big loss because of the captaincy and things like that. But really, I mean, with Colton Parayko, who's still really, he's a solid defender. He's kind of underrated. He's not in the sense, like, he does the right little things. He's really stepped up his game. Torrey Krug, who came over from Boston, and has really performed. He's been injured a few times this season, but really good. Justin Paul, for all the people that have said that, that was a bad contract and what they did, performed in their top four, and, he's really made an impact. So, they have a solid depth at the blue line, and I think it doesn't get talked enough. And I think it's an equally distributed team. Yes. Similar to Nashville, where there's not a lot of superstars, but they play as a collective unit. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, they're they're very well-rounded. Probably one of the best well-rounded teams in that manner. And by the way, it was 1 year ago that Pietrangelo left. He was only in Vegas. This was his first year. It's just that they brought Eichel in later in the year. That's why it seemed kind of weird. But
I thought it was last year that day.
Unless I'm wrong, I haven't gone and looked it up, guys. We're not going to do it. We're busy right here recording. You guys look.
It's his second year with the Vegas Golden Knights.
It's his first year. He didn't play a whole year. No. I think you're wrong. Okay, let me give you one more underrated player that most people don't talk about. Let's move over to the Dallas Stars. Jason Robertson. Very few people talk about. It's just like it's almost like
read him and weep him, mister. 2 seasons.
Yeah, read him and weep him. What are you talking about?
41 games and then 69 this year.
So he has 61 games this year with 63 points. Now.
But he has 69. We're talking about Alex Pietrangelo. I'm going back to this because I'm right. Alex Pietrangelo is his
what are you doing? I'm talking about something different. Okay, he is focused. My buddy here, my co-host, is so focused on I don't even believe him, even though he's telling me this right now, because I don't trust him. He played a whole year already for Vegas, is what you're saying, and now this is his second year?
He played 41 games, yes, because he was injured
last
for
year?
a bit. Yes. 41 games last year.
Oh, okay. I'm wrong, baby.
I did interrupt you, but because he played one more season and then he came in, but he was.
I'd like to bring the story of Hockey Talk back to Jason Robertson before you so rudely interrupted his great season.
I'm sorry to take away. Dallas fans, don't at me. I promise.
All right, Dallas fans. But anyway, Jason Robertson, folks. So last year, he did fairly well. He had less games played, but this year in 61 games, he's got 63 points. He is really at like a .75, .8. Barely anyone has heard of Jason Robertson, probably outside of Dallas. Most people don't recognize what this guy brings to the game each and every day. So I want to say my hats are off to Jason Robertson, man. I love to see, those stories where people weren't advertised and then it's just like, man, where'd they come from? Like who knew they would do this good? And Jason Robertson's also a reason why Dallas is still in contention right now for that playoff spot with Vegas.
100%. And I think playing with Joe Pavelski has really elevated his game. And I like to say, and I know Toronto fans are going to be mad at me, but I think he's better than his brother, Nick Robertson. And I know Nick Robertson has had his issues with injuries, but Jason Robertson is the better brother right now. He's been performing. He can score. He's playing top minutes. The problem with Nick in Toronto is that he's not getting the top line minutes that he deserves. You know, and maybe Hans, who's a big Toronto fan, can tell us if that's good or not, or if they could bring him in next year. But, you know, you've got so much firepower in Toronto already. Where do you slot him? You can't slot him in the third or fourth line place because he's not going to be good enough. So definitely Jason Robertson is someone to watch. He's got some great highlights. Now, one of the other players that I want to talk about that's been overrated given the success of the team is Sean Monahan out of Calgary. Now, Sean Monahan is now out for the rest of the season. He's getting hip surgery. It's not been good. He's only had 23 points this season. Given the success of what that team is, and him supposed to be technically a number one center, but you could say a second line center too. And for what he's making, around 7.3 or 7.5 million, that's not a good look. And you wonder to yourself, with them needing to resign Johnny Hockey in the offseason, will they trade Sean Monahan somewhere else? Because he struggled under the last few coaches there, you know, and now most recently Daryl Sutter, who's really whipped that team into shape and gotten them playing, including Johnny Hockey, who's having almost a Hart-like year. You know, he may not win it. He may not be in the top 3 candidates, but he's in the top 5, top 6 in my mind. So Sean Monahan, for whatever reason, you know, he got his wrist surgery last year. He should have really taken on another step. He's kind of like the Nugent Hopkins of Edmonton, and he really hasn't thrived there. So you wonder what's going to happen there.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to come back to Jason Robertson. Something I was just looking up some information. I didn't know. He is only the 3rd player of Filipino descent to play in the NHL. Tim Stapleton was the first, Matt Dumba. But yeah, so he is a Filipino American. Good on him, man. Repping the Filipino community, guys. So yeah, get out there, cheer this guy on. But I think the Leafs fans will be upset about that. I mean, Leafs fans are, because you guys are being picked on. Let's be honest, right? You're a Maple Leafs fan. There's always someone talking about your team. You haven't made it to the Stanley Cup since this year or that year. For example, people are saying you guys haven't won a playoff round since 2004. So what? So what? Like, is that really a big deal just because it's been 18 years since you got past the first round? You know, listen, the Panthers, by the way, the Florida Panthers have not won a playoff round since 1996, and they're considered a favorite this year to get to the Stanley Cup. Come on. They're not making it to the Stanley Cup. They can't get past the first round. Anyway, I just had to throw that in. That's my little rant on the side.
Oh, man, you're going to get all the Florida Panthers fans very upset. Come on. Okay, so you got best of 7. Who are you taking, Toronto or Florida Panthers?
Oh. Okay, well, I'm because I just watched a game between the two. I'm going to take the Florida Panthers because Toronto just gave up 4-goal lead to the Florida Panthers.
They have a history of doing that quite often, which is really, really.
You saw that too, eh?
I don't know what to do. You know, and that shot by Radko Gudas on Skalgren was the one that shouldn't have gone in. I know it was a point blank shot, but that can't go in. No. And I know he's your backup, but so I'm taking Toronto in that bet though, because as much as Florida is a powerhouse, Toronto can score on a dime as well. They have so much offensive prowess. And if they get their D pairings set, you know, and they've got some big names there. You've got Jake Muzzin now back. You know, you've got Mark Giordano, who was a former captain, you know, and I think Lyubushkin wasn't the best that game, but I think you get Justin Hall back in there, you know, and a few others. And you know what? I could see Toronto rolling over and winning a round or two.
Just before I say something else about Toronto here, because we're talking Toronto, I want you Maple Leafs fans to hang around. We got a good little thing we want to talk about here. I apologize. You were talking about Sean Monahan. I didn't get a chance to mention is that hip surgery, ever since the bubble when it started and he went off, think of Jesse Puljujarvi before he got his hip surgery. So he got hip surgery. Now he's getting hip surgery on the other side. So when people say, he's no good, understand it's an injury, and he hasn't been able to fully come back from that injury. Now, this is one of those scenarios that he's got another year left on his contract, but could this be an opportunity for someone to buy low when he comes back from this hip surgery before he could start proving again whether he can do it or not? Because give the recovery, give him his 6 months, 8 months, whatever it would be. I'm not familiar. I actually think Sean Monahan is a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins player. He's going to be that guy who can play on your power play. He can play on your penalty kill. He plays a 200-foot game. He can score. He has more scoring ability than passing even, with it. But the question is, will he get past the hip surgery? But look at Tarasenko. Seattle passed up Tarasenko because they were worried about injury. Look where he is, like you said earlier. So, anyway.
One of the funnest moments in hockey was the Battle of Alberta when Nugent-Hopkins got to fight Sean Monahan. That was the game where the goalies battled it out, where Talbot and Smith went at it with one another. So that was an entertaining game. But I agree with you. It's tough. Injury can really derail a player, and sometimes they can never return from it completely. We've seen it time and again. So, you have to be prepared to take a hit. You have to be prepared to be ready for every game for any possibility, because, again, one wrong move, Leon Draisaitl, one wrong bad skate, and now he's out for a little bit. Who knows how long? We don't know. Again, you look at Jason Zucker, your favorite Pittsburgh Penguins, who suppose they're going to win it all again. His injury was so bad that, it's been hard getting him back in the lineup. He tried, and he's struggling. And, will he be able to make it back, or is this the end this year for him? So
that'd be a tough loss. Tough loss. Okay, hey, let's go back to our Maple Leaf fans, because I told them, we've left them kind of holding. I have a question for you guys. We're talking about the Hart Trophy. We kind of said maybe, last week in our podcast. Do you think that he is the most valuable player to the Toronto Maple Leafs above any of the other players? I mentioned McKinnon, McDavid, Draisaitl, Roman Josi, Sherskin. Whatever. He ain't going to win. It don't matter. I don't need to get the name right if he doesn't win. Okay, so Austin Matthews, I believe, is the greatest goal scorer to ever lace up for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I believe that. I strongly believe that. I believe that if he can score at least 7 to 10 goals more than Leon Draisaitl, he could possibly win the Hart. But he's going to have to not just be a few, quite a bit, because he doesn't have the points. He does play with Marner. That goes against him. What's your thoughts, Maple Leaf fans? Because this is what I'm confused about. I have no problem saying Matthews has a good chance this year. Not sure it's a walkaway, though. But here's what I'm really interested in. Anthony Stewart says that Austin Matthews is the best player in the National Hockey League. This isn't most valuable to your team. This is the best player. I want to know, what is Anthony Stewart smoking? There is like 3-4 players that are better than Austin Matthews, and I see no way how he can call Matthews the best player in the NHL. Maple Leaf fans, comment away, man.
I'm not a Maple Leaf fan. I don't have to comment, right?
I don't get it. And I like Austin Matthews, man. I do believe that he has now taken Ovechkin's place as the best goal scorer in NHL hockey. I do. But I just don't see how you can think he is the best player in the entire NHL. And if he is...
I think there's a few factors that go into it.
Okay.
He is a true sniper. He's got a way of putting in the puck that makes it look so easy that you think, why can't anybody do this, right?
And his best year ever. He's having his best year ever. I get it.
He's having a Selke-like season where he potentially could win the Selke for how well he's played defensively this season. The numbers can back it up. You can look it up. It's been really great for his stats. Even better than Draisaitl, who's got a few more points.
Yeah.
He has really elevated his game to another level that we can appreciate all the highlights. Now, is he the most valuable player to his team? Yes. the heart. What does the heart definition mean? The most valuable player to your team to make you succeed. Does he make your team better? How is Toronto if you remove Austin Matthews? How is X player, whichever one you're picking for that nomination, in your team if you were to remove him? And in my mind, I still go back to Igor Shesterkin is my Hart Trophy candidate winner this year, because without his save percentage, and it's dropped a little bit in the last 10 games.
The
New York Rangers have no business being in the playoff spot without him.
What?
Yep.
Yeah, really? Have you saw Chris Kreider, man? Have you saw Panarin? Have you saw that team? Have you saw
Panarin's taking a little bit of a drop. He's still in the 70 points, but last year he had a better year. Kreider's gotten most of his points on the power play. He's at 45, and he can win, and he's having a great season, and I love Kreider. I think he's a phenomenal. But that team, a lot of their goals come from the power play. They have one of the best lethal power plays in the NHL. However, they're 5-on-5, not that good. Now, we talked about coaching. That's that coaching boost that they got with Gerard Gallant.
Yeah.
In my mind, without Igor Shesterkin, and Alexander Georgiev has had an okay season, like a solid backup. Without Igor Shesterkin, who's had, and you even mentioned it a few weeks ago, one of the best seasons since Jacques Plante, that to me, when you have a goalie, a hot goalie like you do, just like last year, Carey Price in the playoffs, you can go all the way to the promised land.
Yeah.
So in my mind, Igor Shesterkin is my Hart nominee right now, but no one's asking for my vote.
Well, and that's where Roman Josi. I mean, you take Roman Josi out, and that team's going to finish in. To me, I'm not going by the players playing with them, and I shouldn't even do that for the Rangers, right? Because then you got Marner, you got McDavid, you got Draisaitl, all that stuff. But Roman Josi, man, you take him out, and they're going to be going for a tank job.
Yeah. So in my mind, it's Igor, it's Matthews, it's Draisaitl. Those are my hot nominees, and that order. You guys can butcher me all you want, but that's where I see it as.
So here's a question. This is what you guys can tell us what you think. How do you rate who you think is the most valuable to their team? Some people do an elimination of who they play with, etc. I rate where will they be in the standings. That's how I do it. I say, okay, without the goalie, which is just Stinking, is that how I say it? Joking. So without him, where do they finish? I'm going to still say they make the playoffs. The Oilers, without McDavid and only Draisaitl, do they make the playoffs? They might just slip in. Without Draisaitl, but just with McDavid, they might sneak in. Without Matthews, will they make it? I think they possibly could make it even without Matthews because of the team. So I'm not going to put him in there. And I think Nashville, again, is going to be competing for first overall draft pick if they're not in. So that's why Roman is a home run hit to me.
Here are the stats for Igor this year. This is who I say.
Shesterkin?
Shesterkin. He's played 46 games this season. 32 wins. 10 losses and 4 ties.
Okay.
He's got a .933 save percentage and lets in 2.14 goals a game. Think about it, how many goals are up this year in the NHL. Those are good elite numbers. Those are close to Vasilevsky numbers.
Are you serious? 4 overtime losses? What's with that, eh?
No heart, no love. You guys comment your favorite Hart or your Hart nominees or who you believe should win. Again, in my mind, Igor, Matthews, and Draisaitl for what they've done for the team. And I know McDavid should be out there, but McDavid is going to wow and dazzle everybody. But what their Draisaitl has been able to do because you expect it of McDavid. You don't expect, Draisaitl to be as good as what he should be. And then I think if you want to really get into it, my fourth would be Kirill Kaprizov and then Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary.
Not McKinnon? Oh my goodness, Colorado fans, you got to be all over this dude.
He's been injured a lot. That's the problem.
That's true.
He's been injured a lot.
And they've been able to win without him. That is true. That is true. I mean, it is a really tough job. So, guys, make your comments, put it in there, and we're going to look at your comments, and then we're going to post it on our site next week before our next podcast, what you guys said, who you would pick as the Hart. And next week, let's talk on our show about who we think is going to be Coach of the Year, because we're only going to be looking at about 8 games left in the season for most of those teams. So pretty much the winner of the Hart is already the Hart of the Jack Adams is already going to be there. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore.
It's already decided. So the NHL just has to reach out to Evan. He'll tell him the answer.
All right. So let me throw something out there. We're going to have to call it a show here, everyone. So before my partner goes to his last thoughts, I just want to make mention. So over in the KHL, so just so everyone knows, Jokerit is leaving the KHL. The president of the club, Yari Curry, former Edmonton Oiler Hall of Famer and great, who played with Gretzky all those years in Los Angeles in his latter years, he has left his position on the KHL board of directors. And so the team is leaving. There's no news yet exactly what's going to happen. I know our Russian writer friend, Patrick Conway, if you're listening and you're following with today's episode, man, any new news you got or extra, please let us know. That's going to be 2 teams that are now out. I have a feeling unless there's changes in the future, they're not going back. And I still get this feeling, this is just me, I wonder if we see a new league that is kind of like an Eastern Hemisphere league that will be kind of a feeder system working in with the NHL. If they put the dollars out there, they've been working hard on this. This might be the opportunity with Russia floundering. So,
very true. Yeah,
okay, man. Any last thoughts for you?
Just congratulations to a great career to Ryan Getzlaf of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. He has won a Stanley Cup. He's won gold Olympic medals. You know, he's played over, I think, quite a few games. He's got over 1,000 points for sure. He's been injured in the last little bit, so he hasn't played, but he's decided to call it a career. You know, there was some interest because of what he can do, and I really think he'll be in the Hall of Fame. However, I don't think he'll be a first-time ballot entry. I think he'll be second or third, maybe even fourth, but just because of, like, great career, but you know, and
there's a lot
I still remember how electric he was on the Calgary Hitmen and, you know, what he brought to that team. But great career, great guy, played a Duck his whole life, really gave it all to that franchise, and props to him, and we hope to see him in the somehow involved in hockey ops in the future, maybe with the Ducks organization or somewhere else.
Wow. That's, excellent career. Man, that's amazing. Great point. I can tell how old you are because you remember him with the Hitmen. I think, are you retiring soon or what? So
I'm old for hockey players. You know, when they say, "Oh, look at this 36-year-old Ovechkin," he looks at the end of his career. Oh, yeah.
You are the ball hockey Ovechkin. So go ahead.
Minus the gold and everything else.
Well, you're going to have to give us an update on what's happening in your ball hockey world next week, buddy. Let us know. All right, guys. Well, it's been another ring-a-ding-dong dandy, and that's it on behalf of 2 Guys in Hockey Talk. So in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice and
your head up. Take care, guys.
Stay safe.